Good morning, everybody. You know, if anybody ever wondered why it is the subject matter on this channel sometimes wanders around a bit off gardening, it's not my fault, really. No, the viewers keep asking me questions about stuff that, well, I go ahead and I answer. I mean, that's how I got talking about Hawaiian real estate, how I got talking about, investing and so on. It was because of questions that came towards me. Maybe I made some offhanded comment, and someone said, well, I should ask him more about that. Well, here's another one. I've never done one of these before. This is about work, jobs, and job changing. Yeah. I had a longtime viewer, guy's been watching the channel since I started practically, who asked me about this. Now, I also just had an experience recently with a neighbor who thought he was probably going to get fired because he messed up at the job, and so he was struggling too. So there's two people at the moment I know that are kind of undergoing problems. In this case from the viewer, I believe it was a toxic environment in the workplace that was driving him nuts. I tell you, I pondered this because at first they said, well, what do I know about this? I'm not a job counselor or anything like that. I don't do placement. Well, I started thinking about it, and said, oh my, I actually probably know quite a bit on that subject. Because I started counting the jobs that I've held. I don't know how many of you out there, are record holders for how many jobs have you done. I probably don't make a Guinness record, but I got a lot of them. I started counting yesterday after this came up, and it took me a while. It was hard. I had to think. I started working when I was too young by lying about my age, getting a Social Security card and so on. So it goes way back. I came up with 18 jobs at first, but then last night when I lay down take a rest, I started thinking, I came up with 20. Well, then I started thinking some more, and next thing I knew, I figured I was probably safe to round this off at about 24 jobs. So, as far as regular type jobs, whether it be, in restaurants or in industry or working for tractor implement dealers or whatever it might be, I've had about 24 different jobs since I was, I think I started off at about 14, roughly, probably when I started doing that. First job was the Elks Club. I was a dishwasher, local Elks Club dishwasher. Well, then I realized that I had been hired as a guitarist in a half dozen different bands, so that counts. Those were jobs where I was hired. Now, I had partnership of ownership in several bands, at least 2 or 3 there, and so that kind of led into entrepreneurial life because I've been sort of doing that stuff on and off my entire life. In between jobs, I'd start up some kind of business and so on. What had gotten me to realize is that changing jobs like that actually takes quite a bit of guts. I don't think a lot of us find this particularly easy. It depends, but this is a great time in history. Yeah, after COVID, there are so many positions open, and people are seeking people with skills. If you know how to do stuff, there's probably an opening for you out there someplace. But as I said, it does take guts because we really have what they call the golden handcuffs. We get into a place and, maybe we don't like the work. And maybe the people we work with are not very friendly. And so it's pretty poisonous to be there. Yet, we got a car payment. We pay rent on the apartment, on and on, And so we do get into this set of golden handcuffs that, despite the fact we don't like what we're doing, we really find it very difficult to move on because we're sort of in a situation, as Roland Kirk would put it, volunteer slavery. That we can quit anytime. It's voluntary. But on the other hand, if you quit, park bench and a brown paper bag waiting for you, maybe. You can fall to the bottom if you don't keep climbing in society and working at it. So I know early on in my life, I had heard a quote from a famous lady anthropologist by the name of Margaret Mead, and somebody was interviewing her about, if a person was to choose a career in life, what sort of career should they choose? How would they go about it? Well, her answer was simple. You pick the thing you'd have been doing for nothing anyway. And boy, I agree with that. Okay, now maybe I agree with it because that's where I learned it. It was from her, but that's pretty much been the goal in my life. I was finding this whole thing difficult to do without talking about myself, and I don't want to talk about myself, but the only experience I have with jobs, changing jobs and so on, well, my experience. So it's going to be tough trying to limit this, but I don't recommend burning bridges behind you. Every now and then, all of us probably get into situations at work where things go wrong, and maybe we did something we wish I hadn't done. And so you got a blot on your job record, out of 24 regular jobs, 6 bands, and a bunch of entrepreneurial work. I've probably been fired twice. Yeah. The one time, at least, anybody would have been fired. Anyone. Yeah, I couldn't stop laughing. I could not take this job seriously. So they canned me. So it was hysterical. It was funny. It was a bean cannery, and the machinery that was ancient, and the guy who was maintaining it was a drunk, and the machines kept smashing the bean cans and blowing beans all over me. I was in a pile of kidney beans, roaring hysterically and pounding on the floor when they canned me. I don't think anybody will hold that one against me. Well, but, as a person, I have never really, I've never taken this job thing seriously to heart. I've always found myself with the job usually being in the way of what I really wanted to be doing. Now, if you're in that position, then think about this. If you feel that way, that it's getting in your way all the time, well, you're probably not doing the right thing. It's really important in this, I think, following Margaret Mead's advice, is to figure out and isolate what it is that you're not only really good at, maybe, and well adapted to, but you love it. Yeah, try to figure that one out. It isn't always easy. I mean, I see some people that they're born and they're in 8th grade, and they say, I'm going to be an astrophysicist. Yeah, and they grow up that way. And they do it. There are people like that. Yeah, that all the way back when they're little kids, they knew what they were going to do with themselves. Well, that wasn't me, and probably isn't most of us either. I wasn't even aware of the fact that I was actually going to have to work for a living until I realized what you could do with money. There's the reason I entered the workplace. Money. Initially it was just desire. Yeah, just desire for the stuff because I knew what I could do with it. Right? You got money, you got power, you can do a lot of things in this world, But as I would quote Buddha, that desire is the root of all suffering, and really just crave stuff in this world. If you want to suffer, it is one of the things that gives us the golden handcuff and keeps us in voluntary slavery, as we have a lot of desires, and then the marketplace is always dangling something shiny in front of our eyes. The latest smartphone, new car, blah blah blah. So we have these cravings to fulfill all the time. Limiting them helps a lot, I'll tell you that. because I'm not a greedy person, and I have few desires, although I have a few. I'm human. But generally speaking, without having to do a job, I managed to acquire enough money to be able to live day to day, no problem, and enough to cover me probably for quite a while into the future if anything happened. Job is not essential, okay? This is part of the problem, I think, in our society. A lot of things that ought to be separated, we tend to ball them up in one thing. I mean, well, we got separations between church and state. Some people don't believe in that one. I got separations between God and religion. Not the same thing. Okay, well, when it comes to work and jobs are not the same thing in my mind. Okay, work is that thing that I'll be doing after I get done here. Edit the video, I'll turn around and pull out my sweet corn seed. I'll plant a couple of flats of sweet corn, and that's work here at home at Bill's house. I do work every day. I cook 3 meals a day. That's work, etc. But it's not a job. Any day I want to stop doing it, well, I like to think I can, although the last time I tried, everybody protested. No, don't turn off the gen. Don't stop growing plants. So I guess I keep working for everybody else than for myself. Other than growing enough broccoli and cabbage and corn from my garden over here, I don't need to grow anything else. But I do it. So figuring out what it is that you're not only really good at, but what will grace your life so that it isn't slavery, so that you go to work every day, you go, oh man, everything becomes a job. But if most of the time, you really enjoy what you're doing, you look forward to going into work, well, you're a lucky person, because it means you found a space. You found that niche where you belong. There are job placement tests. I've had a few. I don't think they're good for much personally. I suppose they have counselors that do these kinds of things and help people figure out what they're good at. That might be more useful than a paper test. I don't know. Never had that either. Pretty much always figured this out by myself. I guess one of the earlier things that I noticed that gave me direction was that I had this tendency, feeling as a teen, that I wanted to leave the world in better shape than I found it. I wanted to improve things here on the planet. Well, that meant I wasn't going to go working for bomb fuse manufacturers. I didn't really want to start making landmines or bullets. You know what I'm saying? I want to get into something that was going to leave the world in a better state, or at least not harm it. I started off in art and dumped that one instead of music. Music became what I pursued for the longest time, only to come to realize eventually that even though this is what I thought I wanted to do, it wasn't suited. I wasn't suited to it. The lifestyle's wrong. Yeah, it's just bad for my health. It was not the right business. I loved the art. Didn't like the business. So I pulled out of that, and when I finally got into farming and nursery and plants, and related to horticulture, I finally found a niche where I could sit in. I got respect. I was comfortable. It worked. It was the right thing. Now, I can't offer advice as to how you find that. I can tell you what happened to me. I got so frustrated one time while working for a plastic bag printing firm in Chicago. It's a senseless job. Didn't like it. Ran the warehouse for them. I did it because I needed money. I was paying the rent, blah, blah. Well, I know I was over the sink at the place, washing my hands. And I just stopped. I felt so miserable. I wanted to cry. And I just looked up at the sky and I said, what am I supposed to be doing? I'll be darned. Inside my head, booming, I heard one sentence. Yep. It said, be a farmer, be a lawyer. Or be a lawyer. Huh? What just happened here? Yeah, it wasn't the only time in my life I've heard a booming voice in my head. I had a couple other occasions, but it made a lot of difference in my life. Obviously, I took one look at it and said, I hate lawyers. And so that was cut in half. And I ended up going into agriculture, farming, became the green garden guy. For years, ran the #1 nursery in the Bay Area in California, and so on and so. And I was pretty happy with it all. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know how to tell anybody else to get a voice like that. That was apparently I really needed to hear that because it worked. It was right. And it was the right thing to do. Probably, I think other people maybe find these decisions and things less difficult than I do. Yeah. In general, when it comes to jobs, most of the time, unless they're really the kind that you're really suited to, so you're happy with it, most of the time, at least for me, they take me away from the life that I really want to lead. Took me quite a while to get myself in the situation that I'm currently in. The way I live today is pretty close to how I can visualize that I should be living. Yes. I don't commute. I don't go to work. I don't say, yes, boss. Yeah, I'm comfortable. I live in a wonderful environment. You know, we change jobs for varieties of reasons. A lot of times it's because the boss is a dork, you know. Sometimes can't get along with the coworkers. Sometimes the work's just wrong. You know, it hurts us physically or it hurts us emotionally or mentally. You know, this happens. A lot of reasons why the workplace can be wrong for us. But, you know, I over time, I just finally figured out that work's okay. Jobs, only if you have to. And if you're creative, you'll figure out a way that you don't have to go say, yes, boss, every day and follow the company rules. It isn't. I don't know. The only good thing about it, I think, is that in the process of working for other people, I learned a whole lot about how businesses can be run both on the good end and the bad end. Yeah, I learned everything I ever knew about being a good boss by the worst one I ever had. Well, folks, it's starting to rain on my head. You ain't loose. Aloha.